Oh boy, new hyperfixation unlocked. Why don't we spend a little time talking about how Umamusume Pretty Derby works from a game design perspective? First of all, Umamusume, which translates loosely as Young Horse Girls, is a mobile game where you, the player, are physically training a collection of high school girls who are based on real-life racehorses, both male and female. Yeah, you don't actually play as these horse characters, you're their trainer and manager instead. And on race day, they run on their own. In-universe, Umamusume are otherwise ordinary girls born with horse-like features and an irresistible compulsion to run, to the point that they have to wear metal-reinforced shoes. There's a couple different anime series tied to it. The first one is a pretty by-the-numbers gacha adaptation, but Cinderella Gray, of what I have watched so far, is a darn good sports anime, like, frighteningly good, and is a good example of what can happen when an established concept is handed to a more competent creator. If I had to take a guess, Cinderella Gray strikes me as a story written by somebody who has desperately wanted to tell the story of Oguri Cap for years, and Umamusume gave them the framework they needed to finally do it. I mean, they managed to take this freaking thing and make it intimidating. Also, the trainer-san isn't a creep, so that's a bunch of bonus points right there. I know it sounds weird to clarify that, and it is. I absolutely cannot stand episode 1 of the first anime. It sounds like a crazy premise on the surface, like what My Little Pony nonsense is this? But there's actually some pretty solid foundation work that makes the game not only make sense from a design perspective, but combines the game elements together in an interesting way. Funny story, after I wrote and recorded this episode, I actually talked to my sister about the concept, and even though she's a normie, she seemed to immediately understand the appeal. So, at a basic level, Umamusume is a hybrid of a creature-raising game and an idol management simulator. That's idol spelled with an O. It uses the mechanics of games like Monster Rancher, where you raise a creature who then competes on its own, combined with the aesthetic of an idol management sim where the air quotes creatures are replaced with young women who wear cute outfits. And actually, now that I think about it a little more, this also sort of resembles a sports management simulator, which is another popular genre. And yes, there are creature-raising simulators that are exclusively for horses. It's not a stretch in any direction. Even without much scrutiny, there is an obvious winning combination here. With idol management games, it can be hard to see how well your efforts are paying off on something as subjective as a musical performance, but races have objective winners and losers, so it's a lot easier to tell, particularly with things like leading, passing, and activating skills. It helps that Umamusume is apparently a pretty good horse racing simulator, which is also a surprisingly popular genre that predates video games, so the races themselves are often thrilling spectacles that come down to the wire. I'm sure with a little chicanery happening under the hood to make it more exciting, but it's rare that a win feels unearned. I mean, sure, my silent Suzuka won a race while 7th favorite, but that's just what Suzuka does. Now, these horse girls are technically still idols and put on performances akin to a lot of those idol management games, but these days, watching a virtual concert on your phone is about as exciting as watching a video on YouTube, compared to the thrills of an unpredictable race, so making it so that your Musume getting to be the star of the show as their reward for good racing performance is a novel and effective adaptation of the concept. And yeah, the races are exciting. I witnessed a VTuber almost die watching one. Of course it was Gold Ship. So at its base level, Umamusume is an idol management game that borrows the mechanics of a monster raising game and which uses a horse racing simulator to make the actual management part feel more substantial. Like I said, I've listed the genres: idol management, monster raising, horse racing simulator. If you like any of those, you'll probably like Umamusume. The way it blends the strongest elements of each genre, the fun novelty of being an idol manager, the tangible rewards of monster raising, and the unpredictable thrills of horse racing, will hopefully be another example that will draw inspirations that combine the stronger parts of other genres. But again, how the heck did we get here? Well, I hope I don't have to explain that idols and horse racing are both popular independent of video games. The question is, what is Umamusume's pedigree from this other side? It's a pretty direct line, actually. There have been monster collecting games for mobile since smartphones became a thing, and the game types I listed before are even older, but the earliest one of note that I can see that resembles Umamusume is Kantai Collection from 2013, a game where players collect girls based on real naval vessels from World War II, mostly Japanese ones, to partake in naval combat against American ships that are portrayed as terrible, see also adorable, monsters. It also adopted the historical wargame appeal of altered history through differing choices. Following this came the explosive arrival of 2015's Fate Grand Order, based on the long-running Type Moon series that started back in 2004, taking the story's base premise of summoning legendary heroic figures and making it a collectible experience. Fate is also the game that sort of removed the gender barrier on how these characters get represented. Kantai Collection didn't have this issue, as boats are considered female by default, but I do got a soapbox about this a little bit, because Saber being a girl was a genuine plot twist in the original Fate Stay Night, and now it just feels like they're turning male characters female because they can. This is a little phenomenon known as waifu appeal, and I guess it works because Fate Grand Order keeps making grand orders of money every year. Still, it laid the groundwork for us to have female characters based on male horses. But Fate Go also opened the floodgates of these sorts of games, including games from outside of Japan such as China's Azur Lane, which is basically Kantai Collection but with the roles reversed, and Korea's Goddess of Victory Nikkei, which is about girls whose butts jiggle when they shoot their guns. We don't talk about Nikkei. Though, yeah, a lot of these games do kind of dip into being a bit more on the, shall we say, exploitative side for a particular audience. Again, waifu appeal, although in this case I would say it's the dark side of waifu appeal. Thankfully, that doesn't seem to be the case with Umamusume, as while a few of the outfits the girls wear can be a bit provocative, I wouldn't consider any of them exploitative the way stuff like Nikkei might be. It looks like the folks at Saya Games do seem to understand that women are at least as into idols and horses as men are, or at least they seem to be getting better at it if Cinderella Gray is any indication. In fact, I've found most games about either of those subjects tend to be girl skewing, but I think they did a good job of designing characters that appeal to both groups. For example, the default character that everybody starts with, Daiwa Scarlet, is quite filled out in her design, but she is based on a famous female racehorse, and not one who just competed in filly-only events. The real Daiwa Scarlet competed against male horses and won. Daiwa Scarlet is also a fairly recent celebrity, as she is still alive at time of writing. Well, recent compared to the likes of Secretariat, maybe. So yeah, I think making the default character the adventurous persona of a lady who did well in a male-dominated sport was the right call if Umamusume wanted their female fans to feel seen. There's actually a bit of a cheat code here. Girls based on stallions will have a decoration on their right ear, while ones based on mares have it on their left. Even if you're not that big into horses, it's still a nice peek into sports history as you can learn what happened to your favorite horses. Oh no! But it goes without saying how Fate Go's willingness to gender bend and Kantai Collection making human forms out of non-human things sort of opened the door to this whole idea within the mobile game space. Combine this with ongoing idol series like Idolmaster and Love Live, alongside countless monster raising games and horse racing simulators, and there is a lot to build off of when making a game that connected these together. So, how well does the game execute on these ideas? Well, as a gacha game, you do pull randomly to get these characters, though at time of writing there aren't that many in the international release, not to mention that every single character has their own full campaign to play through, and even those can be altered significantly through the use of support cards, so people looking for content won't have to go far. So yes, like a lot of other gacha games, you have two types of items you pull for, the Umamusumes themselves, or trainees as they're called, and support cards. Thankfully, unlike games like Genshin or Fate Go, these do not get mixed together. You pull for either one or the other. No wasting the SSR slot on a support card when you wanted to pull Silent Suzuka. Not sure how fair the odds of getting a rainbow SSR can be, but I was able to get a good spread with just one account reroll. Pulling for trainees also gives you star pieces to rank them up, and goddess statues which can be exchanged for more of these star pieces. Now, this game does use an energy system, which is often the bane of the existence for a lot of these kinds of games, docking you 30 out of 100 energy to start a campaign, But funny thing, this is a one-time upfront cost for an entire campaign that could easily take days to finish if you're just poking at it from time to time and actually bothering to read. So the energy meter existing at all is sort of comical. When starting a campaign, you pick your aspiring Umamusume and a pair of legacy characters whose memories and sparks get infused into the aspiring filly. Yes, this is a metaphor for breeding while trying to take out the negative implications. The game gives you 5 legacies to start with, and you can borrow a legacy from another player for a comically small amount of the free in-game currency. You can take any acquired trainee through their campaign as many times as you wish, with difficulty changing depending on the character. For example, it is almost impossible to lose Daiwa Scarlet or Suzuka's campaigns. Gold Ship is more difficult, it's called the Gold Ship experience for a reason. And Top Guns might actually violate the Geneva Conventions. I mean, are you looking at this? I failed, yet I still got the title that you get for making 0 mistakes. Screw you, Jean-Luc Picard, you suck! The support cards actually represent your trainee's clique, the friends and rivals that they interact with during their 3-year training period, meaning that it's possible to apply a lot of changes to any given campaign. This also unfortunately means that you cannot use any support cards that match your trainee, so my Suzuka support card goes and gathers dust anytime I take Suzuka on a campaign. Specifically, these cards help increase certain stats and give different sorts of skill hints and bonuses, meaning they are deceptively even more important to have than the trainees, so don't ignore them on your initial roll. Still, this is way more effort than a similar item in a gacha game is usually given. These tend to be just single name weapons, or cards that have names purely for the aesthetic of it. Each trainee has a specific sort of racing that they prefer, and their campaigns reflect that. For example, Suzuka prefers front-running on mid-range turf tracks, while Haru Urara is a late surger who prefers short dirt tracks, though she's also based on basically the Glass Joe of horse racing, which is why she's a bit more comical and difficult. So each campaign gives the players a set of goals, usually a level of success in a race or a fan count, remember these are racing idols. They are given a number of turns, each turn being roughly 2 weeks of time, to prepare their trainee for this event. Each turn is a combination of one choice and, on average, one random event. The choices are to train, rest, or play. Training involves picking a training room based on the primary stat you want to increase, with the stats gained by successfully training clearly posted. The trick to these is that you want to see how many members of their clique are also using any given training area, as going to a place with a lot of them not only helps boost their friendship scores more, but gives you more points, as the cooperation and rivalry inspire your trainee to work harder. Areas with a red exclamation bubble shows that a bonus interaction will occur, possibly granting more bonus points or a skill hint which unlocks and lowers the point cost of your racing skills. A rainbow means that a clique member with a high friendship is here, which seems to more lower the odds of failure than give any surprise point bonus. Oh, failure? Yeah, that can happen. Training takes energy from your trainee, usually about a quarter, and once they drop below half, there is a chance that they might flub or even injure themselves while training, which might hit them with a negative condition that requires a turn in the infirmary to fix. And these percentages are XCOM merciless. I have, no joke, lost a run to a 2% chance of failure. Now, while some random events can restore energy, the primary way to do it is to give your trainee a turn to rest, usually regaining 50 stamina, but it can be more or less depending on whether or not your trainee stayed up late watching Netflix or had some bath bombs handy. But another thing to keep in mind is wits training. While the physical training takes energy away, wits actually gives a small amount back. So if your failure chances are in the single digits, consider spending a turn on wits to still gain a small bump in stats and put you back over half to get another risk-free training session in. It doesn't hurt that resting while still at roughly half might waste one of the many random events that restore about 20 energy on average. That said, it's a game about horse racing, and sometimes you gotta assess the risks and just go for it. Don't you dare try to say I failed because I didn't take any risks. Now, energy doesn't actually affect race performance as far as I can tell. I mean, races can cause your trainee to lose energy, but the real factor on race day is their mood. A trainee in a great mood earns more points from training and does better in races. So taking a turn, especially an early turn, for recreation to get their mood up is often an optimal play. And after the debut, you can technically take a race anytime you like. Winning these gets you fans, prizes, and a whole mess of skill points. Just don't race too often. I learned the hard way that there's a risk to racing 3 turns in a row when I snuck in a race sandwiched between 2 required races that were only 1 turn apart. Not sure if I'm the guy to ask on which skills are good. I try to get the ones that will basically go off in every race regardless of track conditions, but that might not be optimal, who knows. Yeah, it's a lot, and we're only half done. Most days can also trigger a random event either tied to the campaign or from your clique, usually a visual novel moment with a choice that can affect your trainee in multiple ways, usually boosting stats, restoring energy, or changing mood. If no events trigger, you instead get a tiny stat bump from this reporter. Now, while technically any trainee whose campaign you start becomes a legacy whether you succeed or fail, clearing all of a trainee's goals unlocks a campaign extension, and each additional race that you clear gives you a huge boost in every stat, so shrewd play is indeed rewarded. Upon finishing a career, the resulting Umamusume is essentially encased in amber. There are no ways to alter the stats after the end of the campaign, but the campaign for that specific trainee can be played through again without losing this progress, and this final result can be used as a legacy as well as in daily races and events. And these can be intense. The legend races in particular are brutal affairs where your horse needs to be secretariat and a half in order to win. Like, I did a dramatic edit of my first ever legend win, and do you see that? Those specks in the distance? Those are all the horses who were not the legend horse or my horse. The 3rd place winner was too far away to measure, and even then was 7 lengths ahead of 4th. Meanwhile, I won by barely a length and a half. I had all 5 of my speed skills go off in the final stretch, and I needed every single one of them. And this is from a character who floored the campaign extension, by the way, and this race basically made her soul leave her body to shed the extra weight. Although this was also a little personal, as I feel that the opening cutscene for this game kinda humiliated Silent Suzuka, so this was at least as much getting revenge as it was achieving a personal goal.
I promise you, revenge!
Suzuka is love, Suzuka is life. So those are a few things in this game's favor. There aren't really any mindless automatic processes that can get boring super quickly, but there is a fast forward button that makes repeating a campaign a lot easier. It, alongside games like Monster Rancher, feels like a game that values choice and risk-taking over execution, so being a shrewd player is rewarding and your choices feel like they matter. I cannot tell you just how many gacha games I've encountered that have so-called choices that are basically yes or yes but red. That includes you, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, not happy about that. There's a decent variety of campaigns with their own demands, and the gacha system has the appeal of being legitimately new content. Even the support cards, which in any other gacha game would just be set dressing. These, I feel, give Umamusume a big edge over so much gacha trash that's wannabe Fate Go or wannabe Genshin. So yeah, they put some care into this thing as a narrative experience rather than just a repetitive grind, where adding to the gacha pool adds a whole new stories and combinations to play out, so as long as you can get over the initial hurdle that is Umamusume's odd premise, and are a fan of management simulators, and horses, I'd say you'd have a good time with Cinderella Gray on your first screen and Umamusume Pretty Derby on your second. Keep these things in mind, and you too can build a better horse game? Wait, what channel was this for again? Gotta save this. It was featured in a set in Shadowverse Evolve. Oh, geez. I think I'm just gonna have to dance this one out. ちょいと絵になる姿 Wait, Nikkei has a trading card game? You've got to be kidding me!